أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على رسولنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه وسلم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. For the last couple of weeks, we have been studying 22nd word. And the 22nd word was starting with the verse which says, "So God sets forth parables for men, so that they may bear them in mind. Such are the similitudes which we propound to men, that they may reflect." This was the starting verse. And this 22nd word has two stations. The first station was a metaphor, as the verse was stating. And it was telling stories of two friends which were washed in a pool, and they come to their senses, which alludes to twin babies in the womb. So it is a pool that they're washed in. Then one of them is arguing against saying that, well, things happen by itself, don't bother me, just I want to live my life. The other one is saying that, no, don't see, there is an order in this palace, in this city. You need to get to know the maker of this palace. So stage by stage, we went through this parable. And now we are in the second station. And in the second station, he started talking about, again, some verses. This time it is in page 302. So in the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate, God is the creator of all things, and he is the guardian and disposer of all affairs. To him belong the keys of the heavens and the earth. So glory to him, in whose hands is the sovereignty of all things, and to whom will you all be brought back. And there is another thing, but its sources and treasures inexhaustible are with us, but we only send down thereof in due and ascertainable measures. There is not a moving creature, but he has grasp of its forelock. Verily it is my sustainer that is on a straight path. So there is a general emphasis on these verses, which mentions that everything is in his hands. So since then we started going through things in existence and trying to see the signs of their maker. And in the first flash, he made a statement, a generalizing statement, distinguishing imitation or a superficial faith, let's say, and then an investigative faith. He made this distinction. And last week we studied second flash, for part of first flash and also the second flash. And today, inshallah, we will study the third flash.
Third flash. Look at the living creatures revolving in this flowing universe, in this flood of beings. You will see that on each are many seals placed by the ever-living and self-subsistent one. One of them is this. A living creature, for example, a human being, is quite simply a miniature sample of the universe, a fruit of the tree of creation, and a seed of the world. For he comprises samples of most of the realms of beings in the world. One of them is this, a living creature, for example, a human being, is quite simply a miniature sample of the universe, a fruit of the tree of creation, and a seed of the world, for he comprises samples of most of the realms of beings in the world. It is as if the animate being is a drop filtered from the universe in an extremely fine measure. So to create it and be its sustainer, one has to hold the whole universe in the grasp of one's power. Thus, if your mind is not submerged in delusions, you will understand that to make a word of power, for example, a honeybee, a minute index of most things, and to write in one page, for example, in man, most of the matters in this book of the universe, and to include in one point, for example, in a tiny fig seed, the program of the mighty fig tree, and to display in a single letter, for example, in the human heart, the works of all the divine names manifested in the pages of the macrocosm which encompass it, and to make written in the human faculty of memory, which is situated in a place the size of a lentil, writings enough to fill a library, and to include in that tiny faculty a detailed index of all events in the cosmos. To do all things is most certainly a stamp particular to the Creator of all things, the glorious sustainer of the universe. Thus, if one seal out of many dominical seals on living beings displays its light and makes read its sign thus, if you are able to see and consider all those seals at once, would you not declare, "Glory be to him who is concealed in the intensity of his manifestation"? And that's the end of the third flash. So here he's making the analogy between that of the creation and types of creation that we can witness, and that of the sort of items we might see in a book, like a seal, an index, a point, a letter, and so forth. And I guess demonstrating or trying to explain how each of them manifest the variety of divine names of their source of existence. While I digest it, anyone want to give a better recap of what I just read? So here's a question. He's saying, before I get on to the second paragraph at least, there's an interesting thing that he says there too, but he says in the first one that on all living creatures is a seal placed by their creator. I guess how can we understand what a seal in this context means, and how a human being is like a sample of the universe? Anyone want to expound on that and help me? I would be very grateful.
What do you mean by a minute index?
Minute index?
Yeah.
Okay, question to another
How did you
question.
use a minute index?
So before coming to a minute index, let's go with the first paragraph. I guess Aishanur was asking the question, what does it mean that it's seal? There are many seals placed, and human is one such seal. What do you guys understand from that?
Seal is like a indication, right? Like a sign.
Like a stamp?
Yeah.
There is, I guess, inimitable stamp.
Yeah. Like a sign of uniqueness. Oh.
So you will see that on each are many seals placed by the ever-living and self-subsistent one. So I guess I'll just reread the first two sentences again. Look at the living creatures revolving in this flowing universe, in these flowing beings. You will see that on each are many seals placed by the ever-living and self-subsistent one. Ever-living and self-subsistent one. So what does it mean that, because he's speaking about two names specifically, he talks about ever-living and self-subsistent seals, so ever-living and self-subsistent. What would that mean?
I think if you look at something, you could tell that whatever made it is ever living. So it has a seal that says, okay, the creator of this is the living. And also, he doesn't need sustaining from anything else.
Mm.
At least that's what I'm thinking.
What's it?
Why don't we hear them?
They are waiting for
They're still waiting?
motivate the discussion.
Can they hear us?
We're very patient.
Yeah, they can hear us. Aishanur says also, what can we understand from the phrase, as if the animate being is a drop filtered from the universe? So this is how human is being described in here. So this is what we are trying to understand. If everybody's settled. Okay, good. So let me then summarize the questions. Okay, Birkan says in the original it's a single name, Qayyum. Okay. So instead of ever living and self-subsistent, in the original text, Birkan says it is only self-subsistent. So then I'm going with the original text. So he says, looking at the living creatures, you will see that on each are many seals placed by the self-subsistent one. Okay, we will come back to that, why it is self-subsistent. Let's go back to get into the example and try to understand the first statement as such. One of them is this: a living creature, for example, a human being, is quite simply a miniature sample of the universe, a fruit of the tree of creation, and a seed of the world, for he comprises samples of most of the realms of beings in the world. And this next sentence is what Aishanur was asking. It is as if the animate being is a drop filtered from the universe in an extremely fine measure. So to create it and be its sustainer, one has to hold the whole universe in the grasp of one's power. So what does the author say in here? So let me put it as such. Dr. Rahman, help us please.
I mean, I could repeat words we've always said without any deeper meaning. Like, we always talk about how everything is so interconnected that for a human to exist, you need everything. You need the whole solar system to exist, and for the solar system to exist, you need the galaxies to exist. Everything is so dependent on each other that whoever created me must have also created those things. And the animate being is a drop filter from the universe, so I'm basically like the fruit of the universe, or everything, the whole universe like comes together to be able to keep this life living, like the human living or just life living, and that's how I understand it. But we kind of talked about that in the last flash too, so I think there must be something new here.
I think there is. Would you like to reread the text again?
The whole text?
Which part do you want to read?
So when he says, for example, the part that Aishanur was emphasizing, and also the previous part, just the previous sentence. So for he comprises samples of the most realms of beings in the world. What does this mean, for example?
Is this the second paragraph?
The first paragraph. It says, man, for he comprises samples of the most of the realms of beings in the world. It is as if animate being is a drop filtered from the universe.
I can read from there. So it says, one of them is this: a living creature, for example, a human being, is quite simply a miniature sample of the universe. So he's making a claim that we are a microcosm. There's a relationship between us as a human being and the rest of the universe. So this is a claim. You have to examine this. Is this true? Does this hold up? When we look around us, if we look at the creation around us here in this street, in this city, and everything that we experience as, as individuals, does this hold up? So that's the first thing we need to keep in mind. And the second thing is that it's making a second claim and a seed of the world. So when I think of seed of the world, this has a lot of powerful
imagery and symbolism in that from a seed that sprouts
more life and growth and maturation, and you can go on and on. So this is something that can take many different shapes and form for us as human beings. Does this hold up? So we have to ask ourselves that. And then the last part of the sentence, it says, for he comprises samples of most of the realms of beings in the world. So I think he is still the human being, right? For he comprises samples of most of the realms of beings in the world. So samples. So are we, this is less clear to me. Is it saying that we are also representative of the other living beings, and that our attributes and the seals on us represent those attributes? So that's the open question. I don't know. Is this what's being referred to here?
Yeah. So let's say if I was telling you that, let's say there is a table, and I'm saying that this table is a sample of the foods that you can find in the restaurant in the corner. What would that mean? This table has a sample of everything that is in the corner.
It has food from its menu.
Everything is included in this table, right?
Yeah.
So then, if human is such a thing, as samples of everything, then what would that mean? Just
I mean, it's like
reverse engineer.
like the world has different types of creatures, right? So there's some creatures that are microbes, some creatures that are very huge. They live in different ways. Like some reproduce different ways. Some are hot, some are cold, whatever. So he's claiming that the human has like an example of all those creatures in himself, like all of those ways of being.
So for you, there is crocodile in you. I mean, what does that mean? The human is a sample, or is a miniature of every creature, or all the realms actually. What does he say? Most of the realms of things. So what's a realm?
Like a family of creatures. Like I'm thinking maybe predators, whatever.
So you are partially a lion and also a fish, or what?
I think it could probably mean like there's a bit of predator in the human. There's a bit of like the realms of, for example, the realm of angels would be like intellect, right? Like they're perfect and they never commit sins. So that would be like, and they're concerned with meaning. So that's also in human.
So
and then
you're trying to explain an unknown to us with another unknown.
Okay, fine. How about the realm of okay, so for example, lion is a predator,
okay,
and there are categories of things under predator. So humans can be predator too. And then there's like amoebas. So humans are also composed of creatures like that. So on and so forth.
Okay, so this
And
was
I'm taking it very literally.
this time it was more like from the biology class.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. What do you think, Ayşenur? Would you like to pick it up from here? I don't know if it was enough of a introduction.
I don't know if I would call it pick it up, but I can also contribute. I mean, the wording of the sentence was interesting to me when it said drop filtered from the universe. I mean, I'm no scientist, but like if I have water and I take a drop of water, that drop still contains the same chemical makeup of the entire liquid, even if it's one drop. In the same way, that's the sort of, I guess, imagery that it invoked in me. But, when I think about the human being and not just its physical self, so thinking beyond the notion that the human body is physically made up of a variety of the universe or whatever, like thinking of the qualities of a human being. How can the qualities of a human being be represented in the universe? And that's the part that sort of confused me, because it seems like there are human qualities that I can find in myself that I don't necessarily see or directly experience in the universe that seem unique to me, at least. So that was the, I guess, interesting aspect of it, because like Abdurrahman is correct in that in many parts of the text that we read, usually like the text says something along the lines of, and you know, the human being is the fruit of the universe, or something more along the lines of it being the result. But I guess just the wording, I don't know if I'm dwelling on it unnecessarily, drop filtered from the universe, kind of grabbed my attention. So if anyone has comments on that, we can hear. If not, we can continue and maybe see how the examples that Nursi gives further kind of expound on the first paragraph.
Say it.
Okay, so I have an idea what maybe a miniature sample could be. I see a baby right now. I'm thinking this baby is a miniature sample of me, let's say, or like it's just a miniature sample of an adult. I'm thinking, what could be a miniature sample of a universe, a smaller universe, or then a miniature sample of a universe would, I guess, if Nursi's saying that it's a human. I mean, yeah, I don't know why I'm talking. I don't know what that's just what I was thinking of.
I know that makes sense, because when he said seed of the world, I'm thinking like a seed is something where you would put all the information needed to make the final product. So a human, like, he's a seed because he has imagination. So he can make like anything he wants. Like it's true that he's a miniature sample of the universe, because a writer can create a fantasy world that doesn't even exist. And it's like all set up, you know, in logical ways or whatever. And it's all from, you know, sort of imagination.
So then let's work in the reverse direction. So what is human? Let's first start from there. So you said human has imagination, right? So what else human has? Human has the ability to see, the power of sight, power of hearing, touching. These are like, we have such things. Then we have intellect, we have consciousness. What else? These are the things that make human, right? I mean, other than, okay, flesh and bones and organism, this part we have. But also we have these other aspects. So this is what you would call a human. And so how come that this human, for example, your imagination or your intellect, it is a seed, or is it a sample of the universe? What does this mean? Because we said in the table in front of me, if I am saying that this table has a sample of everything in that restaurant, so if I have, I don't know, chicken over rice here, so I should have more of chicken over rice in the restaurant. So now, in human, there is this intellect, consciousness, sight, hearing, all this stuff. And author is saying that human is as if the sample of the whole universe. So what does that mean?
Does it mean like sometimes you may give the example of the sparrow and the lion?
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes the human could be like a lion, and sometimes a human could be like a sparrow. It can act like them, and then it can act like a fish. Maybe, I don't know. What are the qualities of a fish? So a human has the ability to just act or experience like all of the creation in a way, like every emotion experience maybe.
Yeah, so like if you have the food on the table, you're seeing everything that the restaurant has to offer. So nothing's like unknown to you, right? So if they have chicken over rice and tea, so there's a sample of chicken over rice and tea. Maybe not the whole dish, but a little bit. So you know what it is. So if you apply that analogy with the intellect, it's sort of saying that human has the capacity to, like, whatever's in the universe, he can know it potentially. So, and like if you weren't a sample, you wouldn't be able to know it, because sort of like a Venn diagram where, you know, there's a part of the universe that's completely cut off from you. Because like if you write a computer program, you just didn't write the code to know X, right?
Let's give a simpler example. So let's say you have a computer, but you don't have a wireless receiver.
Yeah.
So wireless signal is virtually non-existent for you.
Yeah, exactly.
because you cannot sense it.
Mm-hmm. So, like, basically, the human has everything he needs to comprehend every type of thing in the universe, potentially.
Mm-hmm.
Potentially. So, yeah. So, like, that's a proof that he's a sample.
Yes. So,
How do you comprehend the sun?
You comprehend it by knowing its functions. You don't comprehend like the true reality of it because that's outside the universe, right? Like, that's not related to the universe. But you comprehend like its functions. Like, you know, if I put a plant and you get sunlight, it'll grow. Or if I'm traveling in space, I don't want to go into the sun because it'll.
But you're not experiencing it, right?
Yeah, like the sunlight and stuff. You experience it. But you don't need to really experience it if you can understand it by your intellect. You can understand it. Because, like, is there really anything in the universe that could potentially exist that a human can't like categorize in some way or find out its function? I mean,
we don't know if there is such a thing,
yeah.
but at least what we can say, I guess, is as a human, I can interact with many more things than any of the other component of this universe.
Yeah.
Let's say I can interact with sun and clouds and like the stars, whatever. But let's say a fish, not that much.
Yeah.
A stone, well, not that much. So human is, I guess, in this sense, to the best of my knowledge, as I observe beings in the existence, is the most active students in the classroom, if you like. Because if you take the universe as a class, so you can see which student is the most active student in class. I guess human in this sense can interact more than any other of the beings in this existence. Birkan is asking for microphone. Go ahead, please.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm not sure if my voice is heard properly. I hope it is. So can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. So another thing that I'm not sure if I'm awake or not, so I apologize in advance if I say something stupid. So the author, when he talks about different realms, today, a few hours ago, I was talking to my nephew about Rabbil Alamin, the sustainer of different realms, and we were talking about a carpet. We were sitting on a carpet at that moment, and we said with the carpet that there's all these different aspects. So there's this physical aspect of the carpet that I see, I interact with, and all these physical dimensions like the color, the softness, and so on, I can interact with. But they come with different realms. Like, for instance, I see the color of the carpet, but also this color gives me the pleasure. If I like the color, for instance, or it gives me, let's say, the displeasure if I don't like the color. Or I walk on the carpet and the softness gives me comfort. Or if it is a bad quality carpet, it gives me discomfort. So that with this single carpet, all these different dimensions emerges, all these different aspects emerge. And all these different aspects, all these different realms are being sustained. And as a human being, as author says here, I have the capacity to interact with, to be part of all these different realms, all these different dimensions of the creation. So this is what I understand from different realms. And also my capacity to interact with, my capacity to understand, my capacity to manipulate, or it doesn't matter the mode of operation, but my capacity to be part of these different realms, I guess, is being mentioned here. And going back to the Abdurrahman question about difference between this flesh and the second flesh, I guess I was thinking about this question, and one answer I was able to come up with is, with the second flesh, we were talking about how everything is being created from one thing, or how one thing being created from everything. But here, I guess the emphasis is not on the creation of the things, but the operation of the things, like how everything being sustained moment by moment. Hence the name was the maker in the second flesh, but here is the ever-living and self-subsistent one, like the one who thinks everything alive, and the one who thinks the one who sustains everything. So the name Al-Qayyum. And I guess when he talks about a human being being a fruit of the tree of the creation, or a droplet which is filtered from the universe, I guess he's talking about the way we live, the way we interact with the universe, with all these different dimensions of the universe. I don't see a carpet only. I don't see like some collection of strings when I look at a carpet, but I see the eye pleasure, I see the comfort, and I see, for instance, the labor there. I see the mercy of the labor, or mercy of the father or the mother who bought the carpet. So all these different dimensions emerge with the carpet, and as a human being, I have this capacity to interact with all these. And not only capacity, I find myself interacting with all these dimensions every moment. So that's all.
I guess, what if, well, we're saying that because humans experience all these dimensions of the universe, that human is a sample of the universe, right? But what if that's just the human bias? Like, what if it really is just carpet is just strings, and it, we're projecting, that a carpet has more meaning than a string or whatever. Like, isn't that always a possibility?
What do you mean?
Like,
can you get out of your skin?
No, but isn't it possible that, actually, yeah, you're right.
As if it is possible to get out of your skin and find what truly a carpet is. And that's not how we live at the end of the day anyways.
Right.
Like, because a tomato is a tomato for you. A tomato is not like a bunch of carbon atoms for you. No matter how hard I try to convince you that it's just a bunch of carbon atoms, it's nothing special.
Mm-hmm.
You will know that it's more than that.
Actually, to refute myself, it can be just a bunch of carbon atoms, because you already recognize it's a bunch of carbon atoms, and there's new stuff that the human adds onto it. So, for example, like, let's say a mouse might not recognize a tomato more than carbon atoms, right? But then a higher level of existence will recognize that the tomato is, red, right? Or another level of existence that can find usefulness in the tomato will recognize, oh, the tomato's carbon atoms red and also healthy. Yeah. So, like, the higher the level of existence you go, you're getting new things out of that one thing.
Yeah. So you are getting it from there, right? It's not that you are putting it into there.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I guess the same applies to this book as well. So for a mouse, maybe this would be just a paper,
Right.
But for you, it's a text with meaning.
Right.
So is it that you are coming up with a meaning, or you are getting something? So there is another realm out there, let's say a realm of meaning, with which you are interacting and receiving something from there.
Yeah.
Because it's not simply just paper and ink for you,
Yeah,
it's something more. And it's external to you. You are interacting with something other than you. So there is a part in you which can, if you like, communicate with this other realm, so that there is, let's say, an external realm of meaning, and in you there is an aspect which can receive meaning.
Yeah.
So you have the wireless receiver, but there is a wireless antenna somewhere which is talking to you, so that you communicate, you get some meaning.
Yeah.
So in this sense, human is like a miniature of having the receiver to that message, and there's in the existence out there is a thing called meaning. So this was just the introduction part of it, because this was the claim of the author, saying that human is such a creature, such a miniature, or if you like this, as if a drop filtered from the universe in an extremely fine measure. So everything is taken, like as if the essence of universe is taken into a single drop, and this is human. Fine. What does author trying to do with this sort of a observation? This was an observation about human. And with that, he is trying to say that on every living being, there are many seals placed by the ever-living and self-subsistent. This was his claim. So, the last sentence of the first paragraph. So to create it and be its sustainer, human's sustainer, one has to hold the whole universe in the grasp of one's power. Do you see that necessity? In order to be able to make such a miniature of the whole universe, in order to be able to make this sample, or in order to be able to make this table of the foods, you need to be able to be the one that makes all the food in the restaurant.
I mean, that example doesn't work necessarily for the table, because the owner of the restaurant can tell somebody, take these foods.
I mean, taking example for the purpose of example, because going beyond all the examples as a general rule, all the examples are limited and should be only considered for the purpose that it is being given. So, but
this is a unique one, because nothing in the world, in the world, it seems you can do things by proxy. So, for example, someone was giving an example, like you're filtering out like chemicals into one sample. So the person who made that mixture, he has to know what that mixture is doing, so that he can create that sample. So that makes sense. But in the world, like the person who knows that can tell somebody else to do it, right? But that's because you're already starting with like things existing. I don't know if that makes sense. Like you're already starting with like cards to play, basically. But when there's no universe, nothing, then you need an all-powerful one to, because there's nobody to delegate it to, right? So there's one creator. He has to know all that, like how to do all of it.
We'll come to that. There seems to be something a little bit off to my taste. You're going to say something, brother? Oh, okay. So instead of trying to go, I'm sensing again as if there's some sort of a top-down approach in there. This is why I'm a little bit hesitant.
Well, see, how can we? Yeah, I agree. There's a top-down approach, but like, how can the analogy work when in the creation you can actually delegate things to? Like, if somebody, like he says here, one has to hold the whole universe in the grasp of one's power. Now, the person who creates the sample of food on the table, like he doesn't necessarily have to know how to do that. You know what I mean? Like he could just follow instructions from the restaurant owner.
So I guess in this case, there's the sample, and this. So he's saying that whoever is the owner, so the maker of this says it is as if having a one-to-one matching with everything within the whole universe. So in order to be able to make this little human, you need to be the one that makes human needs to be the one that makes the whole universe. This is the statement.
So the one that made the sample on the table has to be the one that knows all the recipes for like the actual course.
Yes, everything in that regard. So if you read it from reverse, let's see. So human has, let's say, some aspects. Okay, just a second. I need to open the door. Somebody continue. Okay.
While we are settling, if anybody has, go ahead.
Okay, so does anyone have any questions at this point? Any comments they would like to add? If so, now is your chance.
I guess we have a comment here.
So he makes two claims. He says to create it and to be its sustainer. So as I was saying, you could delegate creation, right? But sustaining is something different, especially if you're sustaining more than one thing, right? So if we're saying that to create a human, you need every single thing in the universe to be sustained, and also the human, then it can't be it can't be two things doing it, because there's no way for two things to coordinate sustaining every single thing at once. Does that sort of, at least that's how I'm making sense of it?
Yeah, go ahead, Aishanur, or anybody else. So the last comment, or the point now we are trying to understand is, so to create such a miniature or a sample, and be its sustainer, because it continues existing. And it is being sustained with the rest of the universe, right? So I am interacting with the sun, and also the meanings, and also sight, hearing, and everything. So there is constant interaction. I'm not isolated. So this sample miniature is not isolated from the rest of the universe. So whoever makes the sample and constantly sustains it along with the rest of the universe needs to be the same one who has the grasp, whose power has grasp of everything within the existence. Because as if who is able to hold the small one has to be holding the rest of it.
Yeah. It's like something balancing on a very small point, right? You can't, like, if there's like a, let's say, big bowl balancing on a small point, you can't partially create the bowl and then balance it and then partially create the other half. Like, you have to have the whole bowl, or else it's gonna like fall apart. So yeah, I don't know if that was a good example.
So sorry. So the bowl cannot sustain itself, right? That's what you're saying.
Like, the bowl can't be like, let's say
Some external thing needs to put the bowl there.
Yeah, like the whole
so
bowl.
It can stay there.
Yeah, like the whole bowl.
The whole bowl, yeah.
Like, if you put a part of the bowl, let's say, on top of a pinhead, it's gonna
Same. Half bowl could try to pull up the other if it's an animate object, right?
Yeah.
You can try to pull up and bring the other half to attach to it on the pin. It can't do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, like, you need the whole bowl for the bowl to balance, right? So.
And it can't place itself there.
Yeah. And like in the universe, it's not as if, let's say, the sun is created and then I'm created, and then, like, moment to moment. It's like the entire universe is created every moment. Like, it's like one picture, and then like a frame refreshing itself. Like if it's that interconnected, that's how it would have to be.
Can you hear us? Because I'm seeing that Birkan says I can't hear. Can anybody else confirm that you can hear us? Okay, Hatice Beyza says we can hear. Hatice Beyza, I saw that you were going to make a comment. Go ahead, please.
One thing that came to my mind, just I guess reinstating the same point again, but the human being as the miniature sample of the universe. This past week, I witnessed a baby and a caretaker, where the baby is like, he's like 13 months or 14 months. He's, he's not even a year and a half old. And the caretaker was giving food to the baby, and she was like, do you want this? And he started chewing away at, let's say, option 1. And then she was like, do you want this? Option B. And then he was like, and he kind of like pushed it away. And as I witnessed this, I was thinking, this little human being, which is not even conscious of the fact that he's maybe fully conscious yet, there is still already, like immediately, even as a newborn or as a baby, there is this relationship that he shares with the rest of the universe. Even for something like food, with which he interacts with, he's like, I want this. He may not even know what it is. And at the same time, he's like, no, I don't want this. So it was very interesting for me to realize how even at such a young age, when the kid doesn't even know what he's preferring over or what he's not preferring over something else, was in a state of having some sort of communication and relationship, at least a relationship with the rest of the universe. So I guess one understanding can be, there's already this established connection that I have with everything in the universe. And what Brother Yusuf was mentioning before about meaning, right? So there is meaning in existence, and I can only understand this through my relationship with everything existing in the universe. And then through this relationship, I can try to retrieve the meaning from it. That's all I have to say.
So I'm trying to make this as practical as possible to myself. So I will partially repeat what has been said. But of course, we are going to build up it step by step. So let's say for an Apple computer, so it is interacting with, let's say, certain software, and then certain hardware can be added to it. But there are some other hardware out there which doesn't fit, because manufacturer is different, there is no interface between them, there is no interaction between them. But when I look at myself, I am seeing that the beings in the existence, so I can interact with them and perfectly fits myself. And some of them are good for my body. Some of them are maybe not for good my body, but still I see some sort of a use for them being there as such as well. So but I am made in a way, I am saying, as I, if you like, expand my consciousness within the existence, starting from simple, when I drink water, I feel like, yeah, the one that made my stomach and gave me the thirst must be the one who really created this water out there. Because this is how I think about it. Once this example was being given before, let's say there's no car. Let's assume there's no car on Earth, and you make some sort of excavation and you find a car, like a Tesla. No, not a Tesla, because it doesn't have a gas tank. So let's go with a Hyundai. So you get a Hyundai and you don't know what it is really, but you find out that it's like a machine and it's made for apparently a purpose because there's some sort of an order, and you see the engine and everything. Then you open the trunk of the car, and you see that there is a tank in there, and it's empty. So you say, okay, everything was put in place, and somebody put this tank over there. So there must be something out there which was entering in here, and the car was functioning properly. So if you look at yourself, so I came into being, the baby is born, baby haven't tasted milk whatsoever so far, but there is a tank inside the baby which is going to be satiated by milk only. So you say that whoever put this tank over here is aware of the milk to come, is aware of the water to come, or go with the lungs, baby haven't breathed air yet. Whoever put this lung in there when the baby was inside the womb is aware of the air outside, and then the baby is going to be interacting with this air. So initially, I only say, yeah, I must be aware. But then as I expand my understanding, I'm saying, well, okay, the baby is going to breathe this air. So the one who is creating this lung must be the one who is giving the air to this lung and interacting with it in there, because there's perfect order that keeps sustaining the baby as alive. So we just expand. Still we are in the material realm. As we go to eyesight, because the baby haven't used the eye yet, when inside the womb, comes out and sees the light. So you say, the one who made the eye inside the womb must be knowing the optics and everything about the sunlight. Now our attention is going 8 minutes light distance to the sun. We are saying that the one who made the eye inside the womb must be the one who is aware of the sun. But then again, still I'm saying aware of. Author's claim is he must be the one who is in the control of sun as well. Because I and the sun is perfectly working with each other. There's no contradiction in between the two. Which says the one, in order to be able to create the eye of the baby and also sustain the eyesight of the baby, of the human, one needs to be able to also hold in his hand of power sun as well. And as you expand, you see that this baby, this human, has all bits and pieces of what is out there in existence, because human can truly interact with the whole existence, either actually or potentially. Then you say that whoever is really making this human and sustaining this human must be the one who is creating the whole universe. And I guess a good example for this one would be, since he is talking about this single drop. So when you see a single drop of water, let's say over the sea, you see the reflection of sunlight to you in the surface of the sea. But the surface of the sea is a combination of droplets of water. So every water droplet is a reflection of sun. And also the surface of the sea becomes a huge reflector as well. But it's a combination of all those small droplets. So you say that the one that is being reflected over the small droplet must be the one who is being reflected over the whole surface of the sea. I guess in this sense, if I can make it more.
Wait, can you say the last part again?
So whoever is reflecting on a single drop must be the one that is reflecting over the whole surface of the sea, sorry. Okay, any other comments? We can continue with the next paragraph, but before we continue, any comments?
Another comment I would say is humans like a seed, as he says, but maybe he's also like a mirror, that he mirrors everything in creation, almost. And by mirror, I mean like the capacity to have a relationship with. So you could see that there's not a single thing that could exist that a human being couldn't like have some sort of relationship with it. Like, you know, there are some people that like bugs, even though other people don't like them. There are some people, like, they encounter strange species, but, you know, over time they study it and they relate to it, or, you know, they form bonds with it. So like, and there's really nothing in, at least that we know of today, that like we couldn't do that. Especially in science, right? Like science is all about that. Like the scientist, he has an extended relationship with some part of creation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in that way, like the human being is like mirroring what's he's studying. So like if you took the human and you put him in, like you put him in another, let's say another universe that God created. So you took a human, you put him in another universe, and let's say that human is an expert in insects, right? Then that human can transfer that knowledge. Like he can sort of mirror what was in the other universe to this new universe, right? Like you can tell me about Turkey, right? So you could be like a mirror of Turkey.
And I guess he is going to, actually it's in the middle of next paragraph, but we will come back to that. Okay. So anybody wants to continue? Birkan, go ahead, please.
One point maybe to add is, just regarding your comment about it's not enough to just being aware of things, but having control over everything, is that I guess he's talking about the sustainer, right? He says, so to create it and be its sustainer. So if something is being sustained, that means a progression in this thing. So we see this progression in the universe, and we see this progression in ourselves. So because there exists such a progression that we observe, that we experience, with every step of this progression, with every second of this progression, or every minute of this progression, we go back to our the creator, the maker. And this unbreakable link between the maker and what we observe, what we see, tells us that whatever happens here is in the control of this sustainer. I guess another way to say it is at the very beginning, the author says, look at the living creatures revolving in this flowing universe, and also among these traveling beings. So the author also put the emphasis on this progression, on this change. So everything is constantly being changing. And amidst all this change, the order, the sustenance, or the way they sustain is preserved. So for instance, your example about this droplet and the sun. So when I look at the droplet, I see the sun reflected in it. So now when I look at it, I only know that whoever made the sun or whoever made the droplet was aware of the sun, so that it put let's say, I don't know, something in this droplet reflect the sun. But the sun is changing constantly, and the droplet is changing constantly, and the relationship between them is always there. With every changing aspect of the sun, or the color of the sun, I see a new reflection in the droplet. So their connection, their links are constant and ever changing. And the maker is there every moment, creating the droplet, creating the sun, and then creating the relationship between them. So this change in the creation, change in our experiences, requires us to conclude that to create it and be its sustainer, one has to hold the whole universe in the grasp of one's power. I just repeated the last sentence. But I guess we should keep in mind that the universe is constantly flowing, and everything in it is constantly traveling, meaning constantly changing, in a constant progression. And again, this brings the name ever-living or self-subsistent one, the Al-Qayyum, into mind. So we're not just talking about things being created and just left alone. They are taken care throughout this progression, throughout this change.
Yes, Muhammad Said, go ahead, please.
The beings, or the human being particularly, as a seed of the world, and the comments on that particular expression reminded me of since I am always in relationship with the things, or how can I say this one better way? I am interacting with I'm always in some kind of an interaction. There's no moment of like non-existence in my experience. I always experience the existence. So it means that it is the source must be ever present, or ever present, because there's no non-existence for me, so that I will have a chance to question if the source is ever present or not. So it is automatically the existence automatically shows the ever presence, or ever living. So it's ever present. I'm just wondering if I'm using the right word to make it sure. Ever present for Qayyum, or doesn't matter, but that's how I feel.
What is Qayyum?
Yes, self-subsistent, Al-Qayyum. Yes. So yeah, it was an important emphasis. The universe is changing, constantly flowing. So it's not that it's made, the rest of the existence is made and now it stays. No, I am made, actually I am being made at every moment, because I am so much needing. So I am a sample of the universe, but I am a receiver in all sense. So in order for me to receive things, like I'm in need of air, for example. For the baby, when the baby is in need of water, and if the mother gives, let's say, a spoon of water, how merciful of a relation, right? A spoon of water is being given to the baby. How about the air? Still, we are being spoon-fed with the air. Like somebody is putting spoons of air to our nose, if you think about it like this. So I am in need of air, and I am constantly being provided. So I need a sustainer who creates the air, brings it all the way to my nose, and feeds me with this air. So this is why maker of my lungs, and if you like, air is so much central to my being. So my maker with the air must be the maker of all the forests and all the plants. And so in this regard, it's just extends. And because my air, the air, my lungs and my eyes are working in harmony, my consciousness works with it in harmony. So everything is working within me in harmony, and I am constantly interacting with everything outside of me. So my maker must be the one who is holding the whole existence in his hand. Otherwise, it will not work. And I mean, this is such a beautiful thing to see, such a comfort it gives to me. Now I'm thinking about what's the utility of that. But I'm remembering as a child, thinking about my father. My father is the strongest man. So my father can beat all your fathers. I mean, it's very childish. But for sure, me being needy and being provided by someone who is holding the whole existence in his hands gives me such a comfort, because otherwise I am feeling very vulnerable, very insecure in this existence, because I'm constantly in need. So let's say we are worried about a global warming, but we are not worried about air not being provided to us 5 minutes later. Just imagine what would happen if you said that, well, am I going to be able to breathe air in 5 minutes? It's good that, because we have such worries, most of them are being provided. There are some of them for which the Creator says, okay, let's say this summer I'm not going to give you water, so come and ask from me. Likewise, he says, okay, are you in need of eternal life? Because I have this desire, it's another thing in me. And how is it going to be? Because I am in need of air, air is being provided. I am in need of light, light is being provided. I am in need of eternal life also. So this is another aspect in me, and I'm expecting it to be fulfilled as well. So human is such a creature. And as I am convinced that my Maker must be the one who brings eternal life, like life after my death, then I'm going to be content and happy. Otherwise, yeah, we are getting those degrees, we are studying hard day and night. At the end, 60, 70, 80, whatever age, what's going to happen with all the degree, all the money, all the things that I collected? Going under earth for rotting, what's the point? So it even makes you worry, why am I bothering that much if this is where I'm going to end up being in? So such a perspective has been described in here. Knowing my Maker as such makes my life meaningful right now, makes life livable right now. Otherwise, I just live life blindly, because there is nothing to see in far away, and it's constant depression for me if I don't have such a perspective.
But it's also like what you mentioned also is, like it gives you a proof that he's capable of giving you eternal life. Like if you're convinced, let's say, that he's giving you the air, and you as your body needs air, so he gives you the air. Then when, like, you read in the Quran that like, you know, the disbelievers say, how can bones be resurrected after they're gone to dust? And then, you know, Allah says right after, like, don't you see how the plants are regenerated when the rain falls, right? So I guess in that way, you can see like a proof that he can take like something dead, like something that's been destroyed, and like sort of give it life again. So it's like a proof to you yourself, like, okay, after I'm sort of washed away and like I disappear off the face of the earth, he can bring me back as well. So
he keeps repeating this in front of my eyes every
Exactly.
season, every spring. Muhammad Said and Birkan, go ahead. First, Muhammad.
Excuse me, I forgot my.
Birkan?
Just one small point about what you just said about this comfort and how this understanding helps me with my life. So if we go back to at the very beginning of the second station, the verses listed there, one of them is and there is not a thing but its source and treasures inexhaustible are with us. There is not a thing but its treasures are with us. But we only send down thereof in due and ascertainable measures. So the obvious interpretation was, at least in this context, that he has the control over everything, and he creates things in a with a precise measure. but also from the perspective that you just mentioned. So it also means that whatever you need, whatever you are worried with, he has this source of, he has it in his treasures. And the way you experience this neediness, is worry, is nothing but with a precise measure. So there's nothing to be worried about. There's nothing to be get anxious about. If you need something, it is there in his treasures, and it will be given to you with a precise measure. Like if you really need it, it will be given, just like the breed. So this gives, as you said, a great pleasure, the comfort. I guess one practical application of this would be the takbir we articulate at the beginning of every prayer, Allahu Akbar. So when we start our prayer, we say, at least just one interpretation of it in this specific context. Whatever worries I had before this prayer, whatever trouble I had or I have, or whatever troubles I have to step into after the prayer, Allahu Akbar, the God is, or Allah is greater. So he has the source, he has the treasures of my solution of my need. But with every prayer we practice this. With every prayer we achieve this comfort, satisfaction.
Any other comments, questions? So if not, shall we continue with the next paragraph? Okay, let's continue. Ayşenur, would you like to help us from here on?
Okay, so that was a great discussion, alhamdulillah. Continuing into the second paragraph, it says, thus, if your mind is not submerged in delusions, you will understand that to make a word of power, for example, before I continue the sentence, which is the rest of the paragraph, I guess I wanted to raise the question of how I can also understand delusions. What kind of delusions do I potentially submerge myself into? Do I bring about that, inhibit me from understanding how, say, a honey bee. Well, let me just read the rest of the paragraph, I guess, and then we'll come back to it. It's just a really long sentence. Thus, if your mind is not submerged in delusions, you will understand that to make a word of power, for example, a honeybee, a minute index of most things, and to write in one page, for example, in man, most of the matters in this book of the universe, and to include in one point, for example, in a tiny fig seed, the program of the mighty fig tree, and to display in a single letter, for example, in the human heart, the works of all the divine names manifested in the pages of the macrocosm which encompass it, and to make written in the human faculty of memory, which is situated in a place the size of a lentil, writings enough to fill a library, and to include in that tiny faculty a detailed index of all events in the cosmos, to do all of these things, he says, is most certainly a stamp particular to the creator of all things, the glorious sustainer of the universe. So he's citing a multitude of different things, varying in scale and size, but nevertheless showcasing how they all embody the stamp, the sign, the signature, I guess, of the creator of the entirety of the universe. So I think it would be helpful to break this down and try to understand it. But again, I also do want to return, and since he qualifies all of this with the if statement of if your mind is not submerged in delusions. So, I was just asking myself, what is a way in which I knowingly or unknowingly submerge myself in delusion? What is delusion in this context? And what can I do to make sure that I see what is being expressed as clearly as it is being expressed? So any thoughts on that? Okay, I'm not sure which hand went first, but we'll go with Brother Birkan and then Brother Asim, inshallah.
I guess like one obvious delusion would be thinking that honeybee is just a honeybee living by itself, and as a perfect coincidence, that whatever it does, it has a perfect match with the rest of the universe. So take everything in isolation and see them as independent beings which come together somehow and forms these perfect, what is the perfect illusion of perfect togetherness? I couldn't find the word, sorry. And try to explain it with things like identity, co-evolving things, or just as a matter of chance and random occurrences. And so here, I guess the author tells us that you cannot take anything in isolation, and you have to see. You have to see that even if you just concentrate in one point in the universe, there's a window out of this one point which looks at the entire universe. So you cannot attribute this to mere chance or blind forces.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum. So yeah, the question from Aisha Nur about the the delusions that one thinks about. That's a very good question. Also, I was thinking about the same thing pretty much, like why my mind also sometimes, as Birkan was pointing out, like not to see an example of the honeybee as not something that is just there and not really seeing or reading it. And I really like how Nursi puts it in terms of like a honeybee is said to be a word of power. So it's not saying that honeybee is just a thing, but it's signified, it means to, at least as an example, it is a word of power. It has something that must be read. It has a meaning that has to be seen. And it's just a word in terms of you can break that down and into further, like a word maybe like a summary that one could give about a page or a book. And that's what the honeybee represents in terms of like a summary. And then the author then says like a minute index of most things, and to write in one page. So again, like, in the first paragraph, it was saying all those signs or all those things that we are seeing, which is a flood of beings, all carry a stamp or a seal, a signature that points to something, and that has to be read. So I really thought this was really beautiful to see the honeybee as a poem or as a page or something that has to be read in terms of, and it points to, something about the power of what like that honeybee signifies. You can see all the meaning behind it, that it can only be the work of something that knows the whole conditions of what the honeybee is going to experience in his life. And then he builds on the same thing with continuing on with the man. And for example, in man, most of the matters in this book of the universe, and to include it in one point. So whatever in the whole universe can be, going back to the earlier paragraph also, man being the seed has that potentiality, just as the seed can grow into a huge tree. So man is that same kind of seed that can encompass the whole universe. Like a tiny little man is able to understand and grasp and is connected to the whole universe within him. So in the same way as the example goes on, pointing to, this, like the area of the memory, which is so tiny, and man can have enormous potential in terms of storing, all sorts of understanding, information, meaning into that area, just the size of a lentil. And yeah, so in the same way, like all those, like the seeds of the fig, he says, also can really has the whole program, as the author says, of the, what the potentiality of that little seed can become as a huge fig tree. So all these are like examples, again, from the flood of beings. Like there's flood means like this innumerable, unbelievable, different things that nobody can, you cannot say that, maybe I only have a limited sample, but every single thing in existence, in creation, is carrying that stamp, that seal, that points to that most certainly that that this can only be the work of someone who is the ever-living, self-subsisting ones.
Please go ahead, Brother Yusuf.
So this Quran comes up with this challenge, saying that if you think that this book is written by man, because if you are claiming that Muhammad has written this book, then come up with something similar to Quran. Then says, no, you cannot do it. Let it be, just gather together all your friends and gods and everything. Then this stage by stage lowers the challenge, saying that, okay, you cannot do it for the whole Quran, just make it for 10 surahs. Make it even short of surahs. So, and apparently this is what Nursi is doing in here, saying that universe is like a book. And this book is as such that one word of this book, which is a honeybee, is like the summary of the rest of the book. It's not like, let's take this book now that we have. Somebody has written this book. I can say that, yeah, maybe I can write some text like this third flash. But the topic third flash is not independent of the rest of the book. Honey is not independent of the rest of the existence. In order to be able to make make honeybee in there, you need to be able to make the flowers in the garden that honeybee is feeding from, and the city that the garden is located in, the clouds that the garden is feeding from, the globe, the solar system, and everything. So making a single word of power, which is honeybee, requires that you do the rest of it, because honeybee is like the summary of the whole book. Likewise, he goes with all the examples in here as if is depicting the existence as a book, but not as just some book of random words. It is so much of a meaningful book that its words and the letters and even a dot in the book, which is like a fig seed, contains the summary of a whole tree in it. Or human memory is such a small thing, but it contains like libraries of information in there. So this design of existence tells us something specific. Because this is what we are going to base our conclusions on top of. However the existence is made, so this is my only data, and I'm going to process this data. What do I have? This is the book of existence. Based on that, I'm going to talk about its author. So, if it was some random words, yeah, I could have maybe entertained the idea of it could have happened by chance. But the book is not a bunch of random words or a bunch of random letters. So it is written in a certain way
which shows that whoever has put this single dot over here must be the one who has written the rest of the book. Because this dot over here is put with perfect wisdom. So I guess going back to the question of Ayşe Nur about delusion, so let's say if I see some artwork like Mona Lisa, and I put Mona Lisa under microscope, and I say that you see that gray pixel over there, I could have put that gray pixel over there. But somebody says, are you delusional? Yeah, I mean, you have the ability to take some gray and put a pixel over there, but this gray pixel is not a random gray pixel. It is part of this big picture, and it has a role in there. You see, it is whoever is seeing the whole picture had put there purposefully. And this is just a very simple example, but in existence, truly, a single point is put in its location by considering the rest of the image. And as Gürkan and Asım highlighted, this image is constantly being updated. It's not an image that was written once, that was painted once and stays in there. So the gray pixel is moving with the rest of the things moving. So as if in every moment, whoever is putting the pixel over here must be knowing where that pixel is going to be 5 minutes later and 10 minutes before. So in space and time, everything is so much related. So I guess now the movie analogy might be a better analogy. You see that every frame is taken from a perfect angle. All the colors and everything in a single frame is perfect. But you also see that every frame is within this perfect script. So 10 minutes before and 20 minutes later, every frame is also located perfectly relative to other frames. Such an existence. So you say that whoever put this tree in one of the frames must be the one who took the entire movie, who is the, what's that?
The director.
Director. Must be the director of the entire movie. So it would be delusional to somebody and say that, yeah, I could have taken this. Yeah, I would think of putting this tree over there as well.
Yeah.
So this would be a delusion.
And it would also mean he's not just the director, well, whatever it is, he's not the director, but also the painter of the individual frames. Because, again, back to that initial thing that I said, like, if we're saying all of creation is like this, then there's nothing, so whatever created the creation, there's nothing for it to delegate it to, right? Like, because you can only delegate something if something else exists. Like, I can only delegate to Abdurrahman if Abdurrahman exists, right? Like, there are two of us. But if all of creation and everything that exists is, you know, like paintings, let's say, then
Equally needy.
equally, like every frame of that painting needs to be painted individually.
Yeah.
It can't, like a frame can't rely on another frame, basically.
Because I am in need of being given existence.
Mm-hmm.
How can I give existence to another thing?
Right.
Because I am needy in the first place. I cannot sustain myself in terms of being in that pixel, in that location, whatever.
Yeah.
Let alone I'm going to locate you in there.
Yeah.
So if I was able to locate you there, I should be able to locate myself in there.
Yeah.
But in the first place, I am in need of such a thing.
Mm-hmm.
I do not hold the power of my own existence right now, or anything in this existence.
And also, like, this also tells me about not just power, but also the power of his, I guess, wisdom in a sense. Because if you think about it, to create a summary of something, like a very, very good summary of something, you need to know the subject very thoroughly. So, like, if somebody writes a summary of a book, they need to know the book inside out, or else it's going to be a bad summary. So in the same way, and the book is like one static thing, right? So they take some time to read it, they come up with a summary, and it's good. But then, like, if every single thing in creation is a summary, and creation is like this massive thing, like all that exists, like, it's unbelievable how well the creator of this creation knows the creation. And also, it's not like a static thing where somebody just sat there took in everything that exists, understood it, and then wrote a summary, right? Like everything that exists is constantly changing also. So like the summary is different every single time.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's
I am changing and everything else is changing.
yeah.
I mean, even if you don't go too far, just about your body. My body is constantly changing. It's all the balances in the body is changing. There was this video somebody took, and they were talking about so the guy went for a checkup and then take a blood test, and in blood there were 30 different components. And for every component, it says, let's say, 30 milligrams of this in your blood, and it should be in between 15 and 40. He says, perfect, it's within the limits. It says another one, it needs to be 5 milligrams, and it should be between 2 to 7. It says, perfect, this is also in balance. So my blood has such components in it, and they are being kept in all those balances. So if you increase one of them, another one is decreasing. So everything is being kept in balance. I mean, think about it. If you were in charge of a company as such, and you are trying to balance 30 workers, and you are the manager, so sleepless nights are waiting for you.
Yeah.
So my body is being constantly kept within all these balances, and this is on the blood. I have non-material aspects in me as well. My intellect, my consciousness, my imagination, my desires, wishes, this and that. All of them, still I am being an intact human being. I am being kept from last moment to next moment. I am being provided constantly. So the one who keeps me alive and stable right now must be the one who created me 10 minutes ago and will create me 20 minutes later. Pierre, go ahead, please.
Jazakallah khair. The part which says to include in one point, for example, in a tiny fig tree, the program of the mighty fig tree. I guess what one example would be in our in human beings, let's say DNA, or in any living creature. So in the DNA of everything, that we see a program of the mighty tree. So this, I guess, this is really, really important because as you were discussing that a human being, human body, for instance, goes through all these different changes, and with every change we see a perfect balance, the manifestation of perfection. And we hear that, the people claim, not actually claim, because according to author it's a fact, that we say, oh, but it's because of the DNA. Like, yes, we change, but it is programmed in the DNA. But there is nothing mysterious in that. There is nothing, let's say, miraculousness or nothing to be excited. It's just ordinary, like it's in DNA. But the author says that, yes, you are so right. That, like, the changes that you go through is programmed in DNA. He says, thank you for giving me another evidence of ever living, of self-sustained sustainer. Thank you, he says. So this is not a counterexample. This is even a bigger example, he says. Bigger evidence, sorry. Can you imagine that all the changes that you go through is programmed in the DNA to some extent? So it's like a perfect seed of the mighty tree. How such a wonderful creation, such a wonderful design, author says here. So as Yusuf was saying, that in one letter, in one word, is the summary of the entire paragraph. how cannot you see that this is a miracle? The fact that DNA includes the program of a living creature, it is one of the biggest miracles. It's one of the biggest, like a best style of the fiction. Not a fiction, but like, I cannot find the word, sorry. Like such a perfect writing style. You're giving me a sentence which summarizes the entire paragraph. And then as I read the entire paragraph, I experience the different aspects of this sentence. Different dimensions emerge. So the example of the DNA, according to the author, is one of the biggest evidence of the sustainer, all the glorious sustainer, creator of all things. So going back to the delusion part, if you are not submerged in delusions, you will see that with your counterexamples, you will find the evidence, even the biggest evidence, of the creator of all things.
And this reminded me of somebody's book, which name was The God Delusion.
Oh.
So it looks like the delusion is in saying that, yeah, I can put this pixel over there. So focusing on just one pixel, or saying that, okay, this one protein can be synthesized by itself by coincidence, and not seeing that this one point is being put in there with the rest of the existence all at the same time. And constantly this is what's happening. And trying to assume that things happen in vacuum as if, but nothing is happening in this vacuum. So the universe is such a book that all its parts are in harmony with the rest of it. So whoever put that single dot over there must be the one who has been writing the book constantly from beginning to end. So, so in this sense, in this paragraph, what I am seeing in here is author actually is interpreting the very first verse that is revealed. Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. So read in the name of Rabb who created. So what is to be read? So the universe, the existence is a book to be read. And then he gives examples from honeybee, which Quran talks about. Because when Quran talks about honeybee, so author is giving us as an example of how to read Quran actually. Saying that look at the honeybee and how it is a word saying that whoever is written this honeybee over there is the one that created the rest of the existence, the rest of the universe. He gives the example, Quran talks about fig, teen. So he says, look at the teen, because it's a specific being. You can open it up and see that it has this tiny seed, and look inside this tiny seed is the whole tree.
It would make sense that, I'm thinking about it, it would make sense that the first ayah that's revealed is Iqra, because like that's what Revelation's doing, right? Like it's allowing you to read creation.
Yeah. It's inviting you to read the creation.
Yeah. So it makes perfect sense that that would be the first command.
Yeah. And the rest of the book is all about that, saying that this is what we will do together. So we will read the book of existence together, as if the creator is saying, because in the first class, what happens? The professor goes through a syllabus saying that this is the most important thing you need to remember in the rest of the class. We will read together in the rest of the book that I'm going to talk about the rest of the class. It's all about reading. What are we going to read? The creation. Because بِإِسْمِ رَبِّكَ الَّذِي خَلَقَ. So the creator is saying that read in the name of your Lord who created. So creation is now being attracted to our attention. And saying that read in my name though. Don't read the pixel in vacuum.
Right.
Read the big picture in the name of its maker. Not in the name of a single pixel and relative to its color only. Because it doesn't make sense. If you isolate it from the rest, you lose track of the things. You lose the point. So we are coming to end of time because we need to pray. Yeah, go ahead, Birkan. And if you can also make some comments about the last paragraph, closing remarks?
Last paragraph. So let me read the last paragraph at least. We do that. Thus, if one steal out of many dominical steals on living beings, displays its light and makes read its signs thus, if you were able to see and consider all those steals at once, would you not declare, glory be to him who is concealed in the intensity of his manifestation? So I was planning to make a short comment about the delusions. So I was looking at the Turkish version where he uses the word evham for delusion, with kind of doubts or attitude of maybe the what if. So with connecting with what you just said is reading the universe, I guess what we should do is not being lost with possibilities, but reading the existence, like what is in front of us, what is the fact, what we have, instead of, as Muhammad Said was highlighting, instead of talking about what it could be or what not existent, just talking about the existence. What is in front of us, reading it, because just talking about the possibilities. What if we are making up these things? What if we are just inventing stories and so on? It is not a proper way of thinking. The proper way of thinking or proper way of making a logical argument is going through premises, going through what is existent in front of us. Yes, asking what if or us talking about the possibilities also has a value, but to the extent they shows us another dimension of the existence. Otherwise, if they're taking us to non-existent things, they're just wasting our time. So we're not using them properly. So we shouldn't be submerged in our delusions, in our what-ifs, in our possibilities. They are there to take us to new dimensions, new possibilities, or new truths, but they are not there to conceal what is in front of our eyes. And combining, connecting with the last paragraph, if you were able to see and consider all those seals at once. So these seals are in front of us. All we need to do, just see them. Do not conceal them. Just see them and consider them. And arrive to conclusions. And author says the only conclusion that you can arrive is glory be to him who is concealed in the intensity of his manifestation. So this being concealed in the intensity of manifestation can be, I guess, discussed, but just maybe one tiny thing that I extract is that through the manifestations, through the existing things in front of you, the cheese that you eat, or the fig or olive that you eat, you see nothing but his manifestation, and through these existing things, through these manifestations, you arrive the one who is concealed behind all these. So from what you see, you arrive some conclusions, and the conclusion is him, he. So this is what I understand.
And since he is giving those small examples, and if I was able to see or increase number of such examples, Because what does all those examples say? Whoever is making one must be the one that makes everything. So initially, I was hesitant. So where is God as if? But now he says, everything says, who is making us must be the one that makes the rest. So he was so obvious out there, his obviousness make me blind where he is. Because everywhere was his manifestation. And still I was looking for where he is. All the things that is being drawn was drawn by him. There is no other drawing actually. As if you are in an art gallery and you are saying, oh, where is his paintings? And later on you realize that all of them were his paintings. This is why you couldn't find any reference point to find a thing which is not his. So he is concealed in the intensity of his manifestation.
It's like when it's day outside and it's not obvious, like if you've never seen the sun, it's not obvious to look up, right? Like it's sort of like, oh, it's just day outside. I can see things. But you never question like, what's making me see things? And then you never like look up.
جزاك الله خير. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة.